Hungry dogs run fast.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into my dog's favorite podcast, the Dynasty Dogs, brought to you by the Fantasy Football Universe. I am your host for this evening, Michael Anthony. Alongside me, as not always, because Rich is not here, he is on vacation, having the time of his life, is my good friend, Matthew Montgomery. You can find him at Matt Monty FF. He took his time off from the Devi planet to come down to the Doghouse to spend a little bit of time with us. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Mike. It's about time we finally got a one-on-one pod. We've been talking about it for months. We've had a few guest appearances. I've been in the orbit of the planet and the universe this year in here, but I've never actually been one-on-one with you, so I'm super excited.
Yeah, you had a little bit of an experience on the Devi planet.
Woo!
We were just talking about off air. SC is the Devi mastermind. So how did that go for you? How did you feel about all that?
Well, it's really, really hard to pretend like you know something around people that just live and breathe it. And kudos to SC for allowing me to dumb down the planet a little bit. But kudos to him also. I thought the intro to Devi was a really cool episode. It was just kind of fun to learn why it's taking off. I've never personally dipped my toes into a Devi league, but actually got the invite from SC for my first ever Devi league. So excited to do that.
Oh yeah, he was talking about doing the league. Got filled up and everything, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Make sure you win that league so I don't have to listen to him.
Dude, it's the one I'm focusing on, baby.
It's like when you try to dip into Devi, it's like when you lie on your resume about being proficient in Microsoft Excel because you've played Dynasty and like you think you're ready for the Devi world and you're not. Like my second Devi I'd ever done. I did two in the same year, so it was technically still my first Devi, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I drafted Adam Randall from Clemson, like 6'3", 200 some odd pound wide receiver.
Ooh, okay.
He had like all the hype at Clemson, and he's done absolutely fucking nothing. And I also just happened to draft Malachi Nelson, former, I believe it was USC. Yeah, he was behind Caleb Williams and then transferred out. Yeah. Went to Boise, didn't win the job there, and now is God knows where. So Devi is a very, very, very humbling experience because you put all the work in for players that may or may not even make the league. Tell us a little bit about what you've got going on. I know you write articles for Football Guys. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we were just talking off air a little bit. You were saying how you're about to start a vacation. Well, I'm finally starting to kind of come out of my cave for the off season. I usually like to take Super Bowl till about this past July 4th weekend, to kind of just vibe. I want to make sure my marriage stays intact. I got to make sure I spend time being a human being and not just a fantasy football nut. So over the next 5 weeks, I've got two separate 5-part series. So really a 10-part series of IDP busts and breakouts. So I'll be doing that right as that wraps up. We're right into training camp. I've got 3 teams this year I'm going to be covering for Football Guys. I'm going to be doing the Miami Dolphins, the Minnesota Vikings, and my now hometown Indianapolis Colts. So very excited to do that. Once we wrap up training camp, we start talking about real live statistics, football, things that are actually happening, not just guessing and talking about the same players. And then I got my weekly stock market article all throughout, and I'm sure I'll be doing various podcasts and different stuff. So I'm pretty excited. I'm coming out of the cave as you are entering the cave, so I plan to dap you up real good here. We're going to have a nice show to close you out into your vacation.
Yeah, hold it down for me. Because I'll give you the keys. Just take care of it for me. Actually, I want to ask you real quick about IDP. We're going to obviously talk about the AFC North tonight a little bit. Can you tell me Dax Hill is something? Like, can we get back to what he started out last year before he got hurt?
If I could tell you Dax Hill was something, then that means Bengals fans would be able to. And I don't know, man. I think he's versatile. I think that's almost the problem. He's like a specialist in nothing, but he's good at pretty much anything. So I don't know if they quite understand how to use him or have understood how to use him leading up to. I think this is the make or break year we're seeing that we don't necessarily draft well as a franchise when we go for the big boom defensive player pick. We just, whatever reason, we are just blind defensively. When we pick a player on offense, it almost seamlessly works. It always has been, even prior to Joe Burrow. But for whatever reason, we take these defensive guys and we just, I don't know. I mean, we're seeing it now with Stewart also.
I was going to try to avoid that conversation.
we might as well just rip the Band-Aid off now, dude. For whatever reason, we just can't figure it out. I think Dax Hill's a great player. He's got to put it on the field. He can't just be a great player as a prospect. I mean, we're 3 years in now, right? This is year 3, year 2. So, I mean, we've got to see something. We have to see some real tangible proof that you deserve to be a starter on an NFL team. And right now, he's not exactly taking the reins.
Right. What do you think about the Shamar Stewart situation right now?
You know, it's funny. When I was prepping up for kind of what we were talking about tonight, I was just thinking about the Bengals franchise as a whole. And I think we are so mad that we haven't signed him as fans that we are not looking at the fact that our ownership has actually kind of changed their stance on how they view free agents. We're finally starting to pay key pieces of our team real-time money. And I think because we are such a disgruntled fan base that we aren't even looking at the positive anymore. Now we're just looking at what they don't do. Right. And while I believe that the Shamar Stewart thing is becoming a distraction, so as well as the Trey Hendrickson stuff, I do believe that we have seen some positive momentum for the franchise as a whole this offseason. They finally locked down a stadium deal, which I know is another stress. We've secured every other piece to this team that would require them to – that is required for them to be a perennial playoff Super Bowl contending team on the offense. Again, it goes back to our bugaboo here. The defense, for whatever reason, we just don't care enough about them. We're not treating them well. I don't think they're doing anything underhanded with Stewart, but I do think we're setting a precedent, and he is player one, so his agent is going to be like, we got to lock in here. Mm-hmm. You're setting a market for future teams down the road. So I'm hopeful because I think the franchise has taken a step forward, but it's still disappointing, disheartening, and a bit distracting.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think that they're a team that's going to have to put up like 35 points per game at this point?
I hate to say that because it's not sustainable. I mean, you can't expect your offense to score, 5 touchdowns a game. That being said, if there was one offense in this league, I mean, I don't see why it couldn't be the Bengals. And I do believe because we have finally seen them spend money. We saw Joe Burrow basically take a media tour last year during Super Bowl week and said, sign these guys what they're worth. He was very direct. He was very professional. He didn't do the unfollow everybody on Instagram and like certain posts from random troll accounts. He was direct to the franchise through the medium that he was allowed to do so in, and they listened. Everybody got signed. I think that we're going to see a new peak from this offense because there is no distraction there. They all know where they stand on the offensive side of the ball. T. Higgins is going to be Robin to Jamar Chase's Batman, but Joe Burrow, he's Alfred the Butler. He's got to get it together. He's going to be the one that he's going to be the straw that mixes the drink. And I think it's important that we understand that these guys are no longer tethered to whether they should or shouldn't, whether they deserve, whether they'll be paid. It's there. So this offense, set and forget. 35 points a game. Can the defense just get stops when they need to? You don't have to stop and shut out everybody, but you can't give up 36 points when your offense is scoring 35 a game. And that's what we did last season. And it's just not a sustainable way to be a successful franchise.
Well, we were going to start with Darren Waller, but I kind of tore us into the Cincinnati Bengals somehow. So let's quickly let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals for you right away. Let's talk about their over-under. Right now on BetMGM, they are minus 120 to be over 9.5, plus 100 to be under 9.5. So the smart money is obviously to bet that they win over 9.5 games. That's kind of what I see for them. What do you think about that real quick?
I also think that is a good example with a 17-game season, right? So 9-8 is now the new 8-8. So they are saying
that's the standard set by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Exactly. So I think that we are seeing the market is valuing the Bengals in a normal old school football way. They're an 8-8 team. They might get in if their division breaks their way or if the conference is down as a whole. I don't see this team like that. There were multiple times last season where I felt like they took defeat from the jaws of victory. And like the Kansas City phantom pass interference, Do not get me started on that in week 2 or 3. All right. I was inconsolable for 2 hours in my house. Then you've got the overtime primetime game in Baltimore, which we're getting again, by the way. I think that's a little crap from the NFL schedule making people, but hey, whatever.
That's the money.
Burrow,
that's a money game, though. That's why they do it.
And it delivers every single time. This time, the Bengals did exactly what every team should do in that scenario. You're on the road, and you can kick it to send it to overtime, or you can go for 2 and steal a win. The Bengals tried to steal a win. It didn't break their way. I would take my odds on that every single time with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins on that side of the ball. That being said, it didn't break our way this year. Multiple times there were opportunities for the Bengals to win, and they pissed it away. The Patriots lost week 1 because of all the nonsense off the field. That was 100%. There's 3 losses right there that I believe were preventable.
That sent a trajectory of like oddness for the Bengals season, losing to New England in week 1. That's it. New England, I think, would have been the first pick in the draft if they had lost that game. And Cincinnati would have been, what, 11 wins? Would that have been 11 or 10 for them?
I stopped watching. I'm just kidding. I know every single snap that they did from that moment on, but I can tell you that it was like when you let the air out of a balloon, and it made the noise and everything. That's how the fan base felt. It was like, here we go, man. We're going to get another season where we are going to be hyped up, and then September is going to punch us in the face with 1-3 or 0-4, and then it's over. That's what happened.
I'm glad we could have this venting moment.
Remind me never to come back to the show.
Sorry about that. But do you want to? So since you were a little negative, do you want to start with your dog tag first?
Please let me start with some positivity for my.
Go ahead.
Well, my dog tag right now. Okay, so somebody who I am putting my chain on, right? Chase Brown. He had 1,350 total yards last season with 11 touchdowns, and he had 54 catches out of the backfield. When you're on this offense, we've already talked about it. I'm going to say it one more time. You've got 3 guys here that are the offense, okay? You don't need somebody to take over the backfield. So we are all valuing Chase Brown as if he is a running back that cannot take over an offense. I look at Chase Brown as a complementary piece to an offense that you know what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to force the ball downfield. They're going to try to get to their big-time receivers. They're going to try to get their stud quarterback to throw the ball and beat them. So teams are going to try to stop that. That's where Chase Brown's value comes into me. He is going to be the 3rd or 4th schemed against option on any given play, which means he's going to have lower-tier defenders. That's no shade on anybody. If you're in the NFL, you're a top-tier athlete, but you are not going to put your studs to defend Chase Brown when you got Jamar Chase on the outside. You're just not going to focus on him. And I think that that's where Chase Brown's value comes in. Joe Burrow needs a safety net. Okay, yes, if you send these guys on 15-yard posts every single time that they're up there, eventually they're not going to be open. So you have to be able to open up the field with other complementary pieces. I think Chase Brown is that piece. He's a do-it-all option on a secondary position within this offense. The running back is not a focal point. But I also believe the secret is out on Chase Brown. Well, right now we're in pondering phase of the offseason. We're all going to talk about the players we like, and then we're going to talk about that we like them so much, we're going to begin to try to hate them. I think that Chase Brown is one of these players that we've just talked about because nobody really values him as like a top 10 dynasty, no doubt, set and forget guy. I believe he can be that, but in a more conservative type of role. He's not sexy. He's not going to be Bijan, but he is going to give you starter-worthy weeks. There are going to be times where he pops for running back 1 because of the catching upside. I'm not afraid of the rookie that they drafted behind him.
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
And I believe that the offense is going to benefit everybody, but specifically the players that people are going to forget about on the opposing NFL teams. And I believe Chase Brown's one of them.
I was going to ask you about Taj Brooks because he's kind of I'm not comping him to this player, but like the David Montgomery in this situation, the banger in between the tackles, right? The Jordan Howard, however you want to phrase it. Do you think that's going to eat into like Chase Brown's goal line work? Do you think, because Chase Brown, 4.3 yards per carry is solid. The yards after contact, though, is a little concerning at 3.08. I'm terrible at reading numbers, so my apologies there. Is that something of a concern for you, especially for short yardage situations? Because we do have leagues where, first down points are accumulated. Do you think he's maybe a little bit of a sell in leagues like that?
No, I
No?
think you can get value for him.
Okay.
I think that he will have sell windows this year because I do believe he's going to pop in certain games, and I think that that's when you have to trust your roster. Do I have a roster that's competing now? Do I need to capitalize on this volatile asset that is Chase Brown? Because I do believe we're going to have some volatility, but I do believe at the end of the season we're going to see he won more games than lost us, if that makes any sense. Back to Taj Brooks and the David Montgomery comp, I think it's fair. If it's 4th and 2 and you're the Baltimore Ravens, and it's 4th and 2 and you're the Bengals, which one of those two teams do you believe is going to trust their running back to get 2 yards up the middle? The guy with Derrick Henry. All right, exactly. You're not taking Chase Brown in that comparison. But let's say it's 3rd and 2. You got T. Higgins and Chase on the outside, and you send them out there. Then you've got Chase Brown, who's a shifty athlete. I threw in shifty. I got you there. But he's going to be one of those people that's going to be able to shake open, get 2 or 3 yards, and get that first down. And if not, you got another down. But I do believe that Taj Brooks is going to have opportunities at the goal line, but he's not going to take away from the pass-catching prowess, which is what I want Chase Brown for. So if I have to sacrifice 15, 20 goal line carries for an additional 30 targets in the passing game, I would take that every time.
Yeah. Zach Moss is still there, too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, he had a really bad injury last year, so we didn't really get to talk about him a lot. I just feel like we know who Zach Moss is.
Yeah, he's never – he couldn't beat out Devin Singletary. Like, there were so many times I bet on Zach Moss to win that job, and it just wouldn't happen. So I don't expect that to happen now. But with Chase Brown, it's going to be very interesting to see. You mentioned the 3rd and 2s. In Madden, I love calling the draw play on situations like that. Just because you expect it to go to your wide receivers, and then that would be the perfect situation for the Bengals, Bingo. Right? My thing is that he needs to get better as an in-between the tackles runner. That's kind of been his issue even coming out of college from Illinois. If I'm not, Illinois, because his brother also went to Illinois. He's a Philadelphia Eagle, Sidney Brown. That's what I worry about with him is if you're not consistent enough in between the tackles, that is how you could end up losing your job, or at least the bulk of the carries, right? Because you're going to end up being in that DeAndre Swift ilk where you're getting all these opportunities, but you're not making the most out of them. You're bouncing out a little too much. That is something I fear for RJ Harvey as well. But I'm with you. He's a decent buy at this point. He's a decent acquisition for win now teams. Do you see him being the future of the running back room in Cincinnati, or do you think he's like a complementary piece to a backfield?
Well, don't forget that Zach Taylor does come from the Sean McVay coaching tree, and Sean McVay drafts a running back every single year. So I believe that the offensive philosophy is going to be, we just need to make sure we have a constant flow of playmakers at this position. So when the Bengals draft a running back, I don't think, oh my God, Chase Brown's job is gone. I think we're instilling an offensive philosophy here, and we're willing to take late rounds on a deep running back draft. That's what this was. It was a deep running back draft, and if us fantasy nerds know it, then these coaches knew 7 months ago. So I think that these are strategic picks. Chase Brown is not the physically imposing, Derrick Henry runner or Adrian Peterson. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? But people forget how good a Darren Sproles was, or how good we have these bounce outside receiving backs. We have players that have played this position before in a unique way that have been dominant fantasy players. I know this is going to be an outlier, and he is nothing like this player at all. But think about the McCaffreys and LaDainian Tomlinsons and what they brought to fantasy based on receiving. All right. Yes, they were great runners that had 1,000-yard seasons running, but they also could put together 1,000-yard receiving seasons. I don't think Chase Brown's a 1,000-yard receiver by any means. I think he had 300 or so this year. But I do see an ability for him to get up to that 500 click as he begins to get the role and the confidence of somebody who's going to be like, 60 catches, 500 yards. I mean, I think that's a reasonable outcome. He was already at 54 catches last year, and I do believe that he can get more yards. If it's like you said, he's got to stay on the field. And I think ball security is going to get him on the field and picking up hard first downs. I think he's going to get first drops.
Yeah, ball security was decent for him. Only 2 fumbles last year on 229 attempts. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's kind of in the middle. It's not like a Kyron Williams where he had 6. But yeah, that's for a conversation for another time. I do like this. What would you be willing to give up for like a Chase Brown in Dynasty format?
So I don't think he's one. I think if you're a manager, you should hold out for a one, because running backs that you can consistently start are high value regardless of format. Running back is such it's not stable. So if you have somebody that you know you can start, it's not going to screw your team up. I think that there's value there. But I do think 2 to a 3, a second to a third round pick. I think it's going to depend on what he. I think right now you could get him easily for a 2. I think most managers would be willing to give him up for it. I do. I believe that most managers would be willing to give him up for it because of what you argue with the volatility. And I do think that giving a 2, yes, you're probably giving more than you'd like to give for a player like Chase Brown. But at the same time, you're getting, if you're in a win now scenario, you give up a 2 and you get your potential running back 2 on a win now team with the chops that Chase Brown has and an offense that is going to be around him, that's going to open him up opportunities. I think both teams can win a trade like that. And I think if you wait until midseason, he will show off early because I think they're going to start off pissed this year. And I think that we're going to see a really, really solid offense. So you might even want to hold until that first 4 weeks and then really sell him high if you're going to do that.
I'm kind of surprised you said that low, a 2, because I thought anywhere from like that 111, 112 seems about right in my brain.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, that's kind of where I'm getting at. At that point in time, when all the sexy rookies are gone, that's where he's worth. He's worth the hand-me-down pick, if that means the hand-me-down first-round pick. You know what I mean? Like, sure. your older brother had like a nice Abercrombie shirt that he grew out of, so now you have an Abercrombie shirt that's seen 2 years, but it's still designer.
True. I could see the argument for that. If Emeka Egbuka's gone, especially at the back end of the first, I think I would definitely take the shot on
Bingo.
Chase Brown. Now, actually, speaking of, because you're going to talk about this team shortly, who would you rather have, Chase Brown or Caleb Johnson? Because they're going to be around the same price range in picks.
Caleb Johnson, only because I think the offensive philosophy and identity of the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be more conducive to a run-first style.
I can see
even with Aaron Rodgers and the addition of DK Metcalf, I still think that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin specifically at their core want to play football like the 1980s and 1990s. We're going to run it down your throat and we're going to punch you in the face when you try to do it to us. And I think that Caleb Johnson
might do it too.
Bingo, dude, on the outside and the inside. So I think that they're a team that has a better identity for long-term fantasy production. In the short term, next 2 to 3 years, Chase Brown all the way. But as a career goes, I could see Caleb Johnson being a real stud.
Yeah, but still a very high PPR asset, Chase Brown.
Bingo.
I think I would, if I had a steady Eddie kind of running back, like a Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley. If I had Chase Brown as my running back 2 over Caleb Johnson, I would do that just because of the high PPR asset that he is, as opposed to a guy like Caleb Johnson, who I think his hands are solid. I just don't think he's a proficient route runner in any sense of the imagination. Let's get into your negative here. Who is your doghouse for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Anybody whose name does not have Chase or Higgins in it, and that includes both Jamar and Chase Brown. I just think that this offense.
Good call there. Yeah,
I'm just really trying to hit the nail on the head here that this offense is going to be a triumvirate like the old Roman days. All right.
And Burrow too. You forgot him.
100%. No, Burrow, league of his own. All right. He's Zeus on Mount Olympus here. I think that Gesicki, if you want an actual player that people will draft, that people will see some sort of value in, that I wouldn't go after, Mike Gesicki, the tight end. We just don't throw to tight ends. The Bengals don't throw to tight ends. We've had some pretty good ones. Some of them had injury concerns, but we've just never really dove into tight end. And I think it's because we have always had elite outside receivers. For the last, 15 years minimum, we've had elite outside options. So we've never really had that tight end. And I think that they brought Gesicki back on the contract more as a security blanket and an offering to Joe Burrow to show, hey, we're willing to give you the core that you want here, more so than it is his pass catching prowess, where he's going to be an elite vertical threat down the field. Gesicki's a great player within a system here. And the system is, if he is ever going to have an investment opportunity here, it will be to be a security blanket for Joe Burrow in those muddy situations. Mm-hmm. He's only going to pop when the offensive game plan is out the window, because the game plan is never going to be, let's feed the ball to Mike Gesicki. All right. The game plan is going to be, oh, wow, they're stopping Jamar on the outside, or hey, they're doubling Higgins here. We just can't handle him. So then you'll start to see Gesicki get those chain extending plays. And that's where he can have those boom weeks, as it's kind of back to the Chase Brown adage when he's a forgotten player. The difference between the two for me, I don't believe that. I think Gesicki is the last target out there in this
I
offense, and
agree.
I believe that Chase Brown will have opportunities where he'll have plays that will directly go to him because he's the starting running back, but will also have more plays organically fall to him as a safety net more so than Gesicki. Because if Burrow does not see Gesicki open within a millisecond, the processing speed these quarterbacks have, he's moving on to the next read, and I think that that's where we'll see those dump offs to Chase Brown more so than we would see a dump off to a Mike Gesicki. So I'm off Gesicki.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned how the game plan works out for Kaseki being a fantasy option. I believe I didn't look at this, but I remember seeing it repeatedly. Is his biggest games last year? And mind you, he did have some really nice. Like I believe he ruined a week for me. I played against him in one league where I really needed to win my division, and I ended up getting a wild card spot. But those were the weeks that T. Higgins was out, if I'm not mistaken. His biggest weeks came when T wasn't available, so. Would he be the second, third option if that kind of situation happens? We've seen T be banged up throughout his career, right? But I don't foresee that happening at this time because he got paid. He's happy. He's content. They also brought in a guy I think we all kind of liked at the tight end position last draft, who unfortunately got hurt. He started to show some flashes, and Eric All. And I think that's the guy they want to be that vertical tight end for them. I really wish they would have drafted a guy like Elijah Arroyo to take Mike Gesicki's job because that's the perfect heir apparent for him. But of course, the Bengals already have like one of the best wide receiver tandems, so they don't need a guy like that. But
the best compliment we can give Mike Gesicki is that he was good enough to be the third best receiver on this team. Because if he's the best receiver on the team, we've got some serious issues.
Well, that was going back to his Miami days when Devontae Parker couldn't separate worth of shit.
Exactly. And, we always talk about T. Higgins. We always throw him in at the end like he's some nobody receiver. I really believe that T. Higgins would be the number one receiver on about half the teams in the NFL. 1, I think he's that good. And I think the ultimate troll move that he did during his when he signed the deal was when him and Jamar Chase signed. They signed at the exact same time. And they broke the news to Jordan Schultz, and Jordan Schultz tweeted it out with their permission. T. Higgins is the highest paid number 2 receiver of all time, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah, it is funny. I agree with you, though. If he were to be anywhere else other than Cincinnati, if you put him in New Orleans, I think he's a number 1 over Chris Olave, especially at this point. If you put him in pretty much anywhere other than being
there's like 10 to 15 teams I think that wouldn't do it, but I do believe the rest of the NFL. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they? There's 2 or 3 teams in the division I think that would take him over their current number 1.
For sure. Speaking of Cleveland, let me jump into the Cleveland Browns here. They are minus 145 to be under 5.5 wins and plus 125 to be over 5.5 wins. I could see that absolutely happening. I could see them being in the top 3 picks. Mind you, they also have Jacksonville's first-round pick, which I think will still be in the top 12 because that defense can't stop anybody. They'll have a better offense this year, but their defense is still pretty bad, which is going to lead me into my doghouse. I'm going to start negative here for the Cleveland Browns first. I have to do it. And I'm kind of like, you know how you kind of started with being a cop-out answer when it came to anybody else other than Chase Higgins. I'm actually going to do a full cop-out answer for my doghouse for the Cleveland Browns. I don't like doing it, but any quarterback on the Cleveland Browns roster is in my doghouse right now, right? And that's for dynasty purposes. If you could give me Joe Flacco for maybe, because I think he's going to be the starter week 1. If you could give me him for 4 to 5 weeks, okay. But obviously he's not the future of that franchise, right? Kenny Pickett sucks. Let's just be honest here. I don't think he's worth a damn.
He's a Philly guy. How are you about to beat him up like that?
I don't even care about that. You could throw that right out the window for me. Dylan Gabriel, the shock of the draft was Dylan Gabriel being drafted over Shedeur Sanders. I did not see it with him. I think, the size definitely plays a part in it. I hate to do that because it's not really fair, right? I still think he's a very precise passer. I don't think he has the strongest arm. I don't know how he's going to, fit in the NFL. I don't think he has the raw talent like a Bryce Young has, right? I don't think he's to that level. Obviously, one was the first number 1 overall pick, and then one's a 3rd round pick. So obviously the talent level is a little different. But again, the size comparison is there. I don't really see it with him. Shedeur intrigues me but he's a 5th-round pick. There's no investment there whatsoever, right? If they want to move on from him, they can at any point. He could, if worse comes to worse, he couldn't possibly not even make the team. And I don't foresee that happening, but a 5th-round pick, there's a chance he might not, right? And that also goes into the fact I mentioned in the beginning that they have a top 3 pick in their own next year. They have Jacksonville's pick. There is a high chance that they end up with a quarterback in the 1st round next year, right? Whether it be with their own or they package those 2 picks and get the number 1 pick to take, a guy I really like in Lenore Sellers. If you could imagine Lenore Sellers with this offense, I think we'd be a little bit happier right now. I just don't see the long-term answer for the Cleveland Browns at quarterback on their roster. If you want to talk to me about redraft purposes with a guy like redraft or win now approaches for a guy like Joe Flacco, if you need a 3rd quarterback, I'm not giving up anything other than like a late 3rd, a 4th.
I'll give you a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Like I would need to be on my deathbed pretty much. Like I would desperately need a 3rd quarterback. Like if I have, a stud quarterback and then a guy who's kind of banged up year in and year out, kind of like not super dependable. Joe Flacco's fine in that situation to be the 3rd guy. But I just don't see the long-term answer there, and they don't have any investments in any of these guys. What do you think?
Well, I'm with you. Cleveland Browns quarterbacks are yet again showing us that they are just they're like the Bengals drafting defense, but they can't draft quarterback. That's just what it is.
Well, they had one, Baker.
They had one. That's the craziest part, is even the one that worked did not work for them. So I think you're spot on with everything. I'll push back a little bit on Shador here. So Gabriel, yeah, I'm with you. He's too slight. I think that we fell in love with these quarterbacks like a Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield who were undersized and overachieved. And so we started to go, okay, size doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Look at the quarterbacks that are all-timers. And if they walk in a room with normal people, they take over the room just by being in it. Okay, not even saying a word. You just look at that guy and you're like, that's a dude. And I think with quarterback, you have to have that level of gravitas. And if you're not going to be this physically imposing athlete, you have to be able to do it with either leadership, charisma, or a little bit of work ethic, all that stuff. Joe Flacco is one of those dudes. He's a big guy, but I'm with you. He's great for a Week 18 shootout if your league still does Week 18 stuff. He's a great throw-in for that because he's probably going to be on a roster somewhere. He's probably going to get that backup snap or whatever. Kenny Pickett's Kenny Pickett. I'm not going to beat up the guy. He's just not the tiny hands thing. He's just not going to do it. And then you got Shador. You said Shador. If Shador Sanders gets cut, I want to make sure.
Oh, listen, I don't think I don't foresee that happening. But
because the internet will explode, and I just fucking love when that stuff happens. But I think that Shador Sanders. Here's my boldest take of the offseason. I've been saying it till I'm blue in the face. Now, mind you, this might not be right. This is what we do. This is why we love to do this. I think Shador Sanders is their starting quarterback by Thanksgiving, and I think it'll be sheerly because he's the best quarterback in the room. Yeah. I think the 5th-round draft pick was to slight his ego. I also think it was an ownership move. I do not believe that their coaching staff wanted to, and I think their coaching staff made a decision in the 3rd round that we're going to go with this guy as our future. And then Jimmy Haslam does what Jimmy Haslam does, and he's like, nah, I own the Browns. I want a Sanders in the building. And here's a little bit of more spice for you, okay? Let's say they do have a terrible, terrible year, but they have Shador Sanders showing promise, and they have a top 5 pick, and Jacksonville sucks, and they have a top 5 pick. And let's just say, hey, Kevin Stefanski, we've given you damn near a decade here, and it's not working out. It's not you. You've won Coach of the Year multiple times, but we just need to move on. Deion Sanders come in here. We got 2 top 5 picks. You just came out of college, and your son's the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Can you imagine the fantasy GMing that we could do in that scenario with Sanders, 2 top 5 picks, his son starting a quarterback? Give me that kind of spice.
That would be fun. And I could, to be honest, I could see there is a world where Kevin Stefanski is not the head football coach for the Cleveland Browns because his seat has to be hot, but it's not all on him. Like the talent, the drafting, and obviously that has something to do with him.
He'd be scooped up in a second if he were.
Oh, for sure. Coach. 100%. The only reason I think Shador is a very good quarterback. I don't think he should have been a 5th-round pick. I think he should have been a mid-1st-round pick. I just think that I don't think he's going to be the starter week 1. I think it's Joe Flacco. I think they're going to try to put out something for the first few weeks, right? Right. But again, he's still a 5th-round pick. There's no investment, right?
Nope.
That's why I said he's a cut possibility, because we see 5th-rounders cut frequently. I don't think it happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Could, obviously. But if you're at the top of the draft and you have a guy at Lenore Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allar, these kind of game-changing guys, I think the Browns would do that. And they've, this is not they wouldn't be the first team in history to draft a quarterback and then draft again. We saw it with Josh Rosen with Arizona, and then draft Kyler Murray the following year. So they wouldn't be it wouldn't be crazy for them to do something like that, right? No. I like Shedeur. I comped him to Jared Goff coming out, right?
Okay.
So I think he could be the future. Something doesn't pass the smell test for me as to why he was a 5th-round pick. Obviously, I think it's part of the ego. Does that mean he gets to keep his job for long? I don't know. That scares the shit out of me. That's why I put this whole room as a whole in my doghouse, because I just don't think the answer's there right now. And with 2 first-round picks, 2 top first-round picks, it would not shock me if Cleveland looks to dive in at a quarterback next year.
Wouldn't shock me either.
Listen, I know you just did the Debbie episode, but I think you need to go watch Lenore Sellers. That dude is fun, if you haven't already.
Okay, I will. I will.
But my dog tag, by the way, the positive spin on the Cleveland Browns might be a little surprising, because I just shit on the quarterbacks for so long, is actually going to be the wide receiver. One of my favorite wide receivers from 2 years ago. That's going to be Cedric Tillman. It's surprising how much I just shit on the quarterbacks to bring a wide receiver up in the next breath. But we've seen bad teams feed wide receivers, right? Even bad quarterback play still feeds wide receivers, and it still ends up being fantasy gold for us. I think Cedric Tillman has the possibility to be the alpha number 1 wide receiver in the Cleveland Browns offense. That's how much I believe in this guy. His reception perception just came out. 70% success rate versus man coverage. It's extremely positive. At one point during the season, weeks 7 through 11, he was wide receiver 10 overall, wide receiver 8 at points per game at 18.6. He was absolutely dominant when they had a quarterback that was willing to air it out. And I think here's why I think Joe Flacco would be the biggest, the biggest upping for a Cedric Tillman, because when Joe Flacco played with Michael Pittman just last year in 7 games, 52 targets, 31 receptions, 396 yards, 3 TDs, 12.65 points per game in that time frame, which puts him right at a wide receiver 3 flex option, right? Maybe in a borderline wide receiver 2. And there is nobody that I can think of that profiles to a Michael Pittman like Cedric Tillman, right? Big body, go up and win it, has some decent movement skills. I just rewatched his game against Baltimore. When they pressed up against him, he had some good releases off the line. He used his physicality. He also had some decent footwork. I do think he has to work on his route running just a little bit. And this could be a good 3rd year for him to be a breakout candidate, to be I don't want to say a Nico Collins, because I think that's extremely high praise for somebody. But if he ends up being a Alshon Jeffrey, because that was my comp coming out of college for him, a Michael Pittman, I think we'd be all very, very happy with the Cedric Tillman breakout for him in that kind of realm. He's wide receiver 64 on Keep Trade Cut. He is behind guys like Xavier Legette, Rashad Bateman. Who's the other?
I hate that.
Yeah, I can't understand it. I can't understand it. I got him in the 14th round of a startup this offseason. I am full steam ahead for Cedric Tillman.
That's crazy.
I think listen, I know everybody loves Jerry Jeudy because he's the route runner. He's the PPR guy. I think the upside is higher with a Cedric Tillman because of the size, because of the big playability. I think we underrate Cedric Tillman a lot. And I can't wait to see this year, because I think with Joe Flacco, or I think Shedeur wouldn't be bad either, because he does have a decent deep ball. But I think Joe Flacco would be the best because he's just not afraid to air it out. What do you think of Cedric Tillman?
I think that Cedric Tillman is going to have the greatest opportunity on that team, I think, to break from one tier to the next, if that makes any sort of sense. Where, yeah, right now, wide receiver 64, I think, is extremely underrated for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see him breaking that top 30 right now, that top 40. You know what I mean? I think that's where you might lose me.
I just did the Triple Threat podcast, another podcast I do for the Dynasty DNA Network. Follow them. I'm part of it. I get in arguments with my co-host Wiz all the time. I said on that podcast, because he was wide receiver 64 on Keep Trade Cut, it would not shock me this time next year if he's in right about wide receiver 40. Like if he was right at wide receiver 40, I would call that a success.
I mean, you make a 30% jump there, right? 33% jump nearly. And I think that's
way better math than I would have ever been able to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a huge step up there. That's what I'm talking about. As far as growing a tier, yes. And honestly, since we're doing one for each team, I applaud you for taking the Browns in this exercise that we're doing, because that's got to be tough. Being able to be like, who's going to be the one that is, we don't talk about you to, we kind of sometimes talk about you. And I think that's what Cedric Tillman was this year. He's in that we sometimes talk about him thing. What we're going to have to see is the Browns, because of this quarterback abyss that they've got, because they've got this weird identity crisis, the stadium is now moving. Stefanski, for whatever reason, despite how good he is as a coach, is on the hot seat. You're moving forward from the Deshaun Watson stuff. This franchise is in a bit of a turmoil that's not normal Cleveland turmoil. And I like to invest in unknowns within that turmoil, because it just takes one guy to just step up and be like, yeah, this is a dumpster fire. I'm looking for contract too. I have to put good game film out there, because if the Cleveland Browns move on from me, I want to show my worth to the rest of the league. When you ask your corners, hey, what'd you think about paying this guy one-on-one? Oh, he was a physical nightmare, like you just said. I mean, he is a big physical guy. Michael Pittman, good comp, but I hate the fact that his high end is Michael Pittman. And that's what makes me so hesitant on him.
Pittman was a solid wide receiver too for fantasy for a couple years.
Yeah, and I believe that Michael Pittman's biggest downfall was he didn't get Andrew Luck. He got that he got there, and then the Colts blew up.
I'm just saying they should have held on to Carson Wentz, because it wasn't that bad.
Not a Carson Wentz guy. I'm more of a Phillip Rivers guy. Get him to stay out of retirement one more year. But that should show you that offense was sustainable even with the revolving door of quarterback, because Michael Pittman was a consistent player. And Indianapolis fans are not the biggest Michael Pittman fans, but they don't hate Michael Pittman. It's like Michael Pittman is like everything. They want him to be Mike Evans, but he's Mike Pittman. And that's kind of what goes on.
Mike Evans.
That's what I'm saying. You get that big body receiver, you think it's got to be somebody like that. But I don't want us to stray too far from Cedric Tillman here. I think that Cedric Tillman's got an opportunity, because I do think, like you said, Jerry Jeudy, the route runner, he's got the name, he's got the flash, he had some big games last year. He's going to be the focal point. And I love, in this turmoil and this chaos where you don't know who the number 2 option is, I like to invest in those type of offenses, because usually that offense is cheap to acquire in Dynasty and with the highest upside, because nobody knows what's going to happen. But it's also, you're getting that price dip because the quarterback situation is extremely messy there. And in order for Cedric Tillman to contribute on the field, his quarterback has to be able to get him the ball in spots where he can be successful. And I don't know if Cleveland has that at this point in time. That being said, Tillman as an investment option in Dynasty, 100%. Behind Rashad Bateman, can we just say that out loud one more time? Rashad Bateman's not a thing.
Let's not bury the lead too much. We'll get to that when I talk about the Ravens.
Thank God. All right.
We're not gonna get into that. But if Cedric Tillman could be like the 2017, 2018 Alshon Jeffrey, where he was like a wide receiver 32, I think it was. I think we'd be very happy with that as a 3rd round pick from just a few years ago. And a guy you could just plug into your flex and just be consistently happy with that, right? And also
5 catches, 80 yards.
Yeah. Good after the catch. Like he's my second highest owned Dynasty player in all my leagues. I have, I think 70% exposure to him in my leagues. So I'm a big believer in Tillman. He was other than like the JSNs, the Zay Flowers,
of course.
Him and Marvin Mims were my 2 favorite wide receivers in that class. And we're expecting big things from kind of both of them at this point, right? So I'm all in on Tillman. Let's talk about probably your least favorite team in this division. I would take a gander at the Pittsburgh Steelers. You want to start negative with them, or do you want to start positive?
Do I even have to get positive?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'll start with the negative because I like to end on a high note, right? So I'm going to start with the negative. My doghouse for the Pittsburgh Steelers is Jaylen Warren. Okay, I think that it's probably not going to be that big of a, oh my gosh, wow, him. We all know, we were just talking about it earlier. Caleb Johnson was drafted to fit the Steelers' identity. Jaylen Warren has had plenty of time to showcase something to set him apart from his counterpart. He couldn't beat out Najee Harris consistently. I think Najee Harris is a good running back, but I don't think that he's unbeatable good. And I think that says more about what Jaylen Warren can contribute to a team, which is not a bad asset, but he is always going to be a spell type of running back. He's not going to be the guy who's going to take over the backfield and demand targets, carries, what have you. He's just not that guy. He's a bit of a smaller running back, so he's not exactly taking over the room like we were talking about with the quarterbacks. And honestly, the Steelers' offense is not good. And I don't want secondary pieces on a bad offense. I'm sorry if that's too blunt here, but
I kind of agree with you. To be honest with you, I want
secondary pieces on bad offenses are not ever a good investment. So I just think that Jaylen Warren, we know what he is. It's going to be okay. It's going to be frustrating. He's a low-end flex play for me, but he's a high-end bench stash, if that makes any sort of sense, because he is one injury away from being the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that does carry value.
Yeah. See, I'll push back a little bit with the Najee Harris stuff because the consistency, I guess that's the word, of a Najee Harris for the past several years has just been hard to beat because he gives you 1,000+ yards. He gives you 4 yards in a cloud of dust. He's never hurt. Like, I don't think he's missed a game in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So for Jaylen Warren not to beat him out, I'm not super surprised. He's more that elusive back, the pass catching option. I don't really know how much Aaron Rodgers is willing to really dump off to the running backs at this point in his career. I don't think we saw it that much in New York, unfortunately, because that killed Breece Hall. I have a little bit of interest in Jaylen Warren.
Okay.
I think he's a good compliment to Caleb Johnson, and I'm not the biggest Caleb Johnson guy. I'm not the biggest Caleb Johnson fan. I think he does what Caleb can't do, which is make you miss in a phone booth. Like, if the play is not like completely opened up for him, I think Jaylen Warren can do something with that. Like, if you go and watch the Iowa film, and I'm sure you have, with Caleb, it felt like the offensive line made a lot of running lanes for him, right? And the Pittsburgh Steelers do not have that type of offensive line right now. They were, I forget what I had. I forget per PFF. They were in the late teens and the 20s, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me anymore. So they were just not very good. So I have a little interest in him, but to your point though, I almost have no interest in anybody in this offense other than like a DK Metcalf, right? I am kind of afraid of this entire Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I don't trust Arthur Smith. I do not trust Aaron Rodgers because that just has reared its ugly head for the past 2 years. I'm terrified of what this offense could be. So staying away from Jaylen Warren, not acquiring him is probably the right move.
Yeah, I think the Steelers franchise as a whole is a lot like pizza rolls. Like, if you're having a date,
pizza rolls.
I'm not going to. If you have a date over, are you going to wow her with your Totino's pizza rolls, or are you going to try to cook her a steak?
No.
And that's
what you got to do. You got to make the pizza rolls, right? You got to get the smiley face kitchenware. So you put the pizza roll so they get a smile after you eat the pizza rolls, right?
Don't get me wrong, dude. Pizza rolls on a nice hot day, you know what I mean? Maybe you're just chilling outside, you're poolside, you got a pizza roll. It's going to hit the spot. It's going to be good. That's what the Steelers are. Every now and then you're going to be like, damn, that was a good game. That was well coached. That was a great play. But then you're going to be like, yeah, I like pizza rolls, but I'm kind of feeling a burger. Kind of feeling some chicken. I don't necessarily
deny combo pizza rolls. Tostitos, if you want to sponsor this podcast, I'm all for it. Do not be scared off by what Matt is saying.
Pizza rolls, elite food option. But as far as like culinary delight, are you going to impress anybody with them?
Yes. Me? Yes. You'll impress me.
We need to hang more, Mike. You're my kind of guy.
God, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to go back to I'm with you. The Steelers offense, and I said it sucked, and I do believe it sucks, to be honest. I'm not trying to be funny. I think that we have an Aaron Rodgers coming off a weird time with the Jets. I don't necessarily believe it was 100% his fault, but I also believe he is not the type of guy to have no fault. So I think that it's going to be if there was anybody in the NFL who was more worthy to coach a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it would be a Mike Tomlin. But Mike Tomlin tends to let that line go a little bit. And certain guys we've seen, they just want to move on from George Pickens, Antonio Brown towards the end. They'll move on from high energy personality guys. If you're picking up what I'm throwing down,
DK, which made no sense.
And they brought in DK. So now you've got Aaron Rodgers and his typical moodiness. You've got DK Metcalf, who a lot of people around the league view as volatile. Do we think there's going to be stability there? Do we think that they're going to just all of a sudden be a cohesive unit? I think it's a good thing that Rodgers, when DK Metcalf signed with Pittsburgh, he immediately flew out to Cali and started throwing with Aaron Rodgers. So they built a connection when Aaron Rodgers wasn't signed with Pittsburgh. So I do think it's cool that we're starting to see that the leadership stuff from Aaron Rodgers is still there, that he still wants to be an active participant in this, even if he doesn't go to the BS OTAs. I don't think that's a story at all, by the way.
Right. No,
if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to go see the pyramids instead of talking to the rookies in shorts on the sideline. It's 98 degrees outside. You know what I mean? So, I think it's a nothing burger thing. I think Aaron Rodgers, when rubber meets the road, he's going to be prepared. He may not be the best athlete or the best quarterback that he's ever been, but I still believe he can move the ball down the field. I just do not trust their offensive identity with what Aaron Rodgers actually is. I think it clashes, and I think we're going to see that clash late in the season.
I kind of wish they would have kept George Pickens and just played straight bully ball with him and DK Metcalf. Literally just let them be legitimately let them be the Dudley boys of the NFL. Just 3D'ing people out there on the field. That's all. Yeah, exactly. That's all I wanted. And they fucking took it from me. That's all I wanted. I sent it to so many people, the gif of the Dudley boys after DK signed there. I'm like, great. We're going to get this all beat the shit out of the DBs type play from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they soiled it. And
You'd have George Pickens and the Shiesty and Aaron Rodgers trying to throw the hat man.
Yeah.
There ain't no way. There ain't no way that'd work out long term.
But what I also forgot to mention is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are plus 105 to go over 8.5, minus 125 to be under. And I think the under is more likely than not. I don't see this as a good football team like we mentioned. But now we have to talk about the positives. Who's your dog tag for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Jonnu Smith. Because who doesn't love to talk a little? You know, it's funny. I was listening in preparation for this podcast. I was listening to all of your genius points about why Jonnu Smith can't be this guy. So I have cultivated the perfect argument to bring to you and why you should see the right side of this equation. So I believe that he's immediately the number 2 option in this offense. I think that as far as receiving threats go, I believe he is the number 2. I don't think that unless they bring in some sort of Aaron Rodgers friend that he's just going to pepper with targets like we've seen.
Randall Cobb, Allen Lazard.
Bingo. So I could see that throwing a wrench into this play. But I also believe that Jonnu Smith, and this might sound a little bit outrageous, might be the best tight end that Aaron Rodgers has ever had at his disposal. And we don't ever really see, who are we going to – Mercedes Lewis in his 28th year, or maybe, I don't know, back in the day they had Martellus Bennett.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Didn't they have? No, maybe that was. I thought they.
That's what I'm saying.
Else.
So I think we have Jonnu Smith, who's more traditionally like a wide receiver than he is an inline tight end. Aaron Rodgers always has had elite outside weapons, and he has always had an elite arm talent to get those weapons the ball in spots only they could catch. He was one of the best ever. Before Mahomes, it was without question the best arm talent the NFL had ever seen was Aaron Rodgers. Now we debate everybody that comes into the league because Mahomes did it in 1 year. But let's not forget that prior to Mahomes, everybody knew universally, hands down, it was Aaron Rodgers. I do believe he's aged. He's not that same guy. So when you age, when you're a guy and say what you want about Aaron Rodgers and what he does, he is a very smart dude. And I think he's smart enough to realize that he does not have this young rocket arm anymore that he can throw from 80 angles without breaking something. So he is going to change within a Steelers offense that is a bit more archaic, less motion, which is what was making him so mad in New York with the Jets. Too much motion, too fancy. He wants to simplify.
Too normal NFL nowadays.
Bingo, right. He just did not come up in a system like that. It screwed him up at Green Bay at the end. It screwed him up in New York. And I don't believe that Mike Tomlin is just going to go, you know what, Arthur Smith, let's become an offensive genius. But let's also not forget that Jonnu Smith is 100%. We all blamed Arthur Smith. Jonnu Smith was the reason that Kyle Pitts didn't break out with Arthur Smith. It had nothing to do with the fact that they schemed up. They had 2 tight ends that were consistently on the field. Only one of them produced, and it was Jonnu Smith. We also saw him produce in Mike McDaniel's offense in Miami. When we were doing the show open, I told you I did the Miami training camp. I did it last year too. And last year, my biggest take was Jonnu Smith needs to be on everybody's radar because he was showcasing this at training camp like he was a new and revitalized human being. Now he got away from Arthur Smith, so maybe that's what it was. And now he's going back. But I will say he was like a loaded gun out there, man. He was doing things in training camp, and it translated to last season. He had what I guess his second or third potential breakout, what he was supposed to have. So I think that this year he's got the best quarterback he's ever had, albeit an older quarterback. He's got an offense that he's familiar with Arthur Smith. He's going to be the number 2 option. What else could you say to be successful than having those things in front of you?
So let me ask you this. Do you think Jonnu Smith is a viable dynasty asset? Do you see him being viable for the next 2 to 3 years?
That's tough.
Yeah,
because excuse me, you choked me up. I think that
you got excited about the pizza roll conversation. You get it.
It's got me all hot and bothered, baby. Yeah. We talk about dynasty leagues. Let's just break it down like this. What does dynasty mean? Winning all the time. It doesn't mean who has the prettiest rookies. Look at my phone. Look at how cool my draft was. It's who has the team that wins. Who's the dynasty?
That's fair.
I think when you're building a dynasty team, people always say, oh, I do 3-year windows. I do 5-year windows. You know what your window should be? The freaking season. And you find out during the season whether you can compete or not. Did the rookies that you took in the 5th round or 4th round or 3rd round, did they make it to your squad and made you a competitive team? Because if so, your window should change. It shouldn't be 3 years. It should be 3 weeks. Can I win the playoffs? Or can I make the playoffs? Can I then win my Super Bowl? So as far as teams contending, yes, Jonnu Smith at worst will be a tight end 2 for you because he is an elite receiving option at his position.
Tight end 2, what does that really do for you, though?
We all know injuries happen, and all of the elite tight ends are old. All of the elite tight ends are old, with the exception of McBride, Mayer, and
Mayer.
Or not Mayer. I'm wishing Mayer. Bowers. I'm wishing Mayer in my head.
Yeah, me too.
No, Bowers.
That's why I wanted to go to fucking Miami, by the way. It just
yes, dude. I wanted him to go to Cincy. I was all over that little nugget. But all these elite tight end, it takes them a while. We forget that these guys used to take 3 to 4 years to be an NFL tight end that was noteworthy. We've been spoiled by these outlandish outlier players. But Brock Bowers doesn't grow on trees. George Kittle was a late round pick for a reason. We've had Travis Kelce. Nobody knew who Travis Kelce was until 3 years ago, and he's like, 34 now? So, I mean, we're starting to really see these outliers skew how we view the position. And I think that Jonnu Smith broke out like any normal tight end did. 4 or 5 years in, and he wasn't fantastic, but he was consistent. And then the next year, he was better and consistent. And then I believe that this year, he will be better again and consistent. And I think consistency is what wins dynasty leagues. It's not about the highs and the lows. Mm-hmm. It's the consistency across the board. Can this guy not lose you a week? I think Jonnu Smith is the guy who you can put in the lineup. He ain't going to lose it. He may not always win it, but he's not going to lose it.
Yeah, I like that, and that I'm going to use that a little bit when I talk about the Ravens. But are you still willing to give up like a late 2 for a Jonnu? Because that's what his value is right about now.
You know what sucks is you've asked me the one question that I refuse to answer the way I should. No, I wouldn't. I don't trust Jonnu. I don't trust Jonnu Smith because I've had the grenade blow up in my hand before, doing that same type of trade. But this was years ago when he was a Patriot and he had Tom Brady thrown to him. So I'm like, all right, yeah. Was it Tom Brady or was it right after Tom Brady? Either way, I traded for him when he was a Patriot. thinking the same thing that I do now.
Gesicki or Jonnu?
Jonnu, yeah. When Jonnu was on the Patriots. So this is, 3 teams ago.
I forgot about that. That's why I thought Gesicki, because I thought Gesicki was going to be the guy in New England for a minute.
Well, I will never forget it because I leveraged my future in a dynasty league thinking he's the next breakout tight end because I got fooled by those priors of, all right, all these guys are breaking out. Well, look at this guy. He's got the athletic build. He's got the receiving chops. He's got all this, that, and the other. And it was wrong. I don't want to acquire a player like Jonnu Smith unless, like we were just talking about, I feel that my team can win it. And if my team can win it, a player like Jonnu Smith is at least a great bench option for my flex or tight end. So that way in the premier cash money pay me weeks, I've got an option that I know will put points on my roster.
Yeah, I could see that where he's a kind of break in the case of emergency tight end like you have. Like that's kind of how, like, I know off topic, but that's kind of how I feel about like a guy like Hunter Henry, right? Just a steady Eddie, very cheap dynasty option. So I see what you're saying from that aspect. I don't trust Pittsburgh, and I think that's the crux of everything I was saying last week about the Jonnu trade. Like they might end up going fucking, I know 12 personnel is 2 tight end, 13 personnel. Would that be 3 tight ends with Frymuth, Jonnu, and Washington?
He's huge. He's like,
which is
300 pounds.
Man, I really wanted him. Like I have no shares of him, but I really wanted him to be good because he's just a mountain of a human being. It would just be fun to see him just trucking people. But I also
got 30% of my dynasty leagues. I was just doing that this morning. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Listen, that's a good bet. Just the athletic freak, right?
I'm not wrong. I'm just early.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it with Jonnu about the late breakout. Maybe it's Darnell Washington, and I guess you're saying Kyle Pitts still has a chance. But
never.
You said it, not me. You said it,
dude. Kyle Pitts is dead. Stop that. Kyle Pitts, stop. God, this is a PSA. If you learn anything from this podcast, we're an hour and 1 minute in. Kyle Pitts is not there. This is an AFC North podcast talking fantasy. Kyle Pitts is not the guy. Get off of him while you still can.
Well, let me go right into my Baltimore Ravens. Not my Baltimore Ravens. I don't know why I said it like that. They are minus 110 to be over 11.5 wins, minus 110 to also be 11.5. So 11 is the number, it seems like. Yeah. And that seems about right with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, the MVP front runner. I think, all signs point to them being a highly explosive offense again, right? But I want to go with my honorable mention first for my dog tag. And the reason why he's my honorable mention is because I didn't want to regurgitate what I said just a few weeks ago in our wide receiver buy episode. That's Zay Flowers. I am a huge Zay Flowers guy. He is just, you talked about consistency. That's where I wanted to go with this. Is I see Zay Flowers being just a very consistent wide receiver 2 for your dynasty rosters every single year, or a consistent wide receiver 2 finish for your dynasty rosters every single year. A guy who's going to finish in the 20 to 24, 18 to 22. Like he's going to be right in that finish for your fantasy finishes year in and year out. I think because of the way he runs routes, the way he's just super efficient after the catch, per PFF, where is this here? Per PFF, Flowers over the last 2 seasons ranks 2nd in avoided tackles per reception and 3rd in avoided tackles per route. This dude's just an absolute human joystick of a human being, whether it's with the ball, as a route runner, electric all over the field. I think we don't give Zay Flowers enough flowers because of the offense that he's in. But people forget the fact that he was still, in an offense that primarily runs the football. He was 21st in targets, 22nd in receptions. If you were to tell me he did that in an offense with Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, I'd be like, okay, he had a solid season. Well, he did. He was 12, wide receiver 25 in total points, wide receiver 36, 12.3 points per game. I think he could continue to get up higher as he goes. He did it his rookie season, got better his second season. I continue to see him going upwards in his trajectory. And I could, just like I said, consistent wide receiver 2 fantasy points year in and year out going forward, in my opinion. That's how I see Zay Flowers. That's why he's my honorable mention. Didn't want to regurgitate what I said before. But what I want to go with the dog tag, And you can't give anybody else on this team the dog tag other than Derrick Henry, right? He is the king for a reason. He is obviously 31 years old. He has the most rushes by an active running back in the league currently. And I think that's by a decent amount between all the active running backs. He just got a 2-year, $30 million extension. So the Ravens are still willing to let him tote the rock at least for another 2 years. This is an offense that loves to run the football. This is, one of the best running backs in all of football. I still want to acquire him for a late first, even at 31 years old. And don't know if you saw this report. He has a record he needs to beat this year. I forget what the actual number is, but Adam Sandler told him he could be in the next movie. Yeah, if he hits 2,000, he could be in the next Adam Sandler movie. Yeah. He's motivated. A motivated Derrick Henry is fucking terrible for all of us. He's just going to be an absolute monster of a human being. Again, he's coming off his most, by the way, this is surprising. It surprised me. His most fantasy points scored in his career last year, right? At 30 years old.
It's a nice intro.
Yeah, I could absolutely see him doing it, close to doing it again. Top 5, top 6 finish. Again, Derrick Henry's the king. Got to give him the dog tag. What do you think?
Yeah, Derrick Henry should be everybody's favorite running back. He is the epitome of what old school running back was. Nasty. I'm bigger than you. I'm stronger than you. I'm faster than you. Take me down. And I don't think that anybody has ever been effectively able to just say, we stopped Derrick Henry. I think that he is one of those players that almost ages like a fine wine, which we don't ever see with running back. We always see running backs deteriorate, disappoint, and then eventually they're just kind of discarded or they're talked about as, okay, well, now he's a running back too. Okay, now he's a flex option. Okay, now he's on my bench, and now I don't care about it. Derrick Henry has not even ascended to should he be a flex? He's never been there yet. And I still think that we will see a natural progression with him as he ages. But we don't see athletes like Derrick Henry at running back. I'll never forget back when he was for the Titans, and there was a training camp picture when the Titans had just acquired Dion Lewis. And there was a picture side by side of Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis. And I still to this day will reference this photo. And if you can find this photo, just type that exactly what I said into Google Images and you'll know exactly. You've got Derrick Henry, who looked like he hasn't touched a carb since 1996. And then you've got him looking twice the size and about 3 times the weight of Dion Lewis right next to him. And I'll never forget looking at that and saying, there is no competition here. Mm-hmm. There's no competition here.
Because there's also Henry, that picture of him and Mark Ingram when he was at Bama, right?
Yeah.
You don't even forget that one. He made Mark Ingram look like a normal human being.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. He makes professional athletes look like losers. And it's not even like a shot at Dion Lewis. Like, dude was jacked out of his mind. I would kill for that body. But then you got a guy like Derrick Henry. It's like, oh, no, that's an athlete. That is a physical specimen. That is somebody that is a one-of-one outlier. And when you have a one-of-one athletic outlier at any position, he needs to be the focal point of an offense. And I think even to Lamar's credit, he even deferred some of those Lamar read option. Oh, I can get the first down because I'm the best athlete. I even think Lamar in the back of his mind is like, I don't have to do that. I don't have to take the hits anymore because look what's next to me. Good luck taking him down. No, I'm with you.
Still willing to give up a late first for him at 31?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, me
absolutely.
too, 100%. Yeah. Especially if I'm you talked about it, trying to win right now. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's no better veteran buy, in my opinion. Like, him. I think Mike Evans is still one. I'd still take Derrick Henry over Evans. I just think he's a very good, like one of the old timer veteran buys.
I think he, even as a depreciating asset, will still garner value back to your team. So even if you bought him for a first and you don't get the first type of value, you could move him next year for a 2 or 3 and get back some of that value. So I do believe that he's a unique player where I'm buying him as a running back in his 30s, and I am not hesitating.
Age be damned, right?
Damn right.
But I got to go into my doghouse for the Baltimore Ravens. It's somebody I mentioned earlier, and I hate to bury the lead there. It is Rashad Bateman. You're welcome. Wide receiver 40 overall last year, wide receiver 51 in points per game at 9.8. Wide receiver 59 currently on Keep Trade Cut over wide receivers like the aforementioned Cedric Tillman, Rashid Shaheed, which I think I would rather take Rashid Shaheed at this point, Marvin Mims, Xavier Legette. I'm borderline taking every single one of those guys over Rashad Bateman. I don't see it with Bateman. If you're playing best ball, right? I absolutely, right? Have him on your rosters. 9 receiving touchdowns last year, ADOT of 15.2, yards per catch, 16.8. He is their big play threat, right?
Yeah,
he
best
is their
ball.
guy.
Sorry, I want to get on your best ball point. Best ball is the perfect format for Rashad Bateman because I never have to make the decision to start him.
Yep, exactly. And he's not like at 9.8, he's borderline startable, right? He's very close. Like I like to have obviously over 10. I think we all want double-digit points. It's not going to happen every single week for everybody, right? But I don't see it with him. And in offense, like obviously Lamar's threw the ball more times last year, I think he did in his career. And that still only brought him to wide receiver 51 points per game. Like it's not going to get any better for him, right? Nope. I think Zay Flowers has cemented himself as the number one option pass catcher in that offense. And then it's between Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely as pick your poison on who you still believe in at that. I still kind of think Mark Andrews is the guy. I think Isaiah Likely is just right behind him, like waiting in the wings. Then Rashad Bateman, I guess. But then there's still Derrick Henry. But that's the thing. Like I don't want any piece of him. The fact that he's going before Cedric Tillman is blasphemous. I'd rather take the gamble on Cedric Tillman because we've seen the explosive games out of him, for a decent amount of time where the trajectory is there. I don't see a trajectory where Rashad Bateman jumps into top 40 at this point in Keep Trade Cut or in rankings or in anywhere. Like I see that for Cedric Tillman. I don't see the upward spike for Rashad Bateman at this point in his career. Fun player. He gets a lot more passes than I think passes, not as in the plural or the passes from Lamar Jackson. I'm talking about from the fantasy industry. Like he's just a guy that for whatever fucking reason,
I don't get
everybody loves. And I just I don't think I have one single share of him. I'd have to go look. Because I don't see it. It's the big play. Like speaking of big plays, I don't know if you've seen the reports. Devontae Walker has been one of the most impressive players out of camp.
Tar Heel, baby.
I love Devontae Walker. I think never mind. It's a conversation another time. They just paid Rashad Bateman, so I don't think Devontae Walker is going to take his job or anything like that.
I would be more comfortable acquiring Walker before I would acquire Bateman at this point.
Have to. People probably cut him at this
That's
point.
What I'm saying. I would think I would rather roster Walker over Bateman. I don't see what everybody expects Bateman to do.
Because you could put Walker on your taxi squad in most leagues where you're going to have to sit Rashad Bateman on your bench and have him get 6 fucking points and just do nothing, right? I don't see the appeal. I looked up some trades for him. On dynastydaddy.com, a really good website that I kind of look at every once in a while just to figure out trade values because they take actual trades and they plug them into their database. Rashad Bateman for a mid-third is pretty much the move in most leagues. I would do that. Rashad Bateman for Ray Davis.
Yes, 100%.
Give me Ray Davis every fucking day of the week.
Yes,
just because Ray Davis was solid last year, even just in the small chances he got. And who knows what's going to happen with James Cook because he ain't getting that $15 million. I'm telling you that right now, right? So who knows what happens with him. Then there's another trade. Rashad Bateman, a 26th third for Theo Johnson, and probably one of my favorite really, really cheap buys in Malik Washington. I think I would rather have the Theo Johnson, Malik Washington side over Bateman in a third because that's essentially 2/3 for two guys that are worth 2/3. So I might as well just take the gamble on Malik Washington. By the way, I think could be in for a decent season. Seamless plug there. Again, I'm out on Rashad Bateman. Best ball, no matter what. And it seems like you agree.
Yep.
Okay, good. That was a very easy transition because we just spewed our hatred for Rashad Bateman. Got into an argument with Wiz about him. He's a Ravens fan, so I get it. The blinders are on. The purple blinders. He sucks. For fantasy purposes. Great football player. Don't get me wrong. Not a fantasy option. Yeah, heck of a guy. Real quick, we want to talk about this in the beginning when we started talking about the Bengals early, and then we just decided to jump in. But let's real quick talk about Darren Waller to Miami. What are your thoughts on this? Do you hold on? I got this exact quote. Every time he runs a route, the whole team be on him. Is exactly a quote from him from his new rap single that came out a few weeks ago.
You know, it's so funny.
Do you still think he has that?
I was going to look up some lyrics too and do the same thing. That's so funny. You beat me to it. Look, how often have we seen hip hop stars move to Miami? That's just what they do.
Always.
I know. I mean,
Will Smith wrote a song about it.
Yes, exactly. So look, Waller at his peak, there was he was in the conversation every year. Would you rather have him or him? He was in there. I think there was a 3 to 4 year window where he was just a no doubt set and forget option. Mm-hmm. That was many moons ago. And I believe that once you retire in the NFL, whether it's mentally or physically or actually signing the paperwork and not being on the field, whenever that hits, you can't turn that back on. Because when you have to get into a different mindset when you are in the NFL, the job of the other team, when you're on offense, the job of the other team is to incapacitate you to the point where you are on the ground. All right. And I just don't think people understand that, these guys are not running like you and I running at each other and then tackling each other. These are dudes that are just seek and destroy. There's a giant target with a ball in his hand. I need to make him hurt. I need to hit him on the ground. Now, obviously, they're not trying to injure people, but they are trying to physically impose their will on them. And I just don't see somebody who's been out for 2 years rapping and making music videos and living a luxurious rap lifestyle, which is a bit different than how you and I live, I'm sure. And then going back and go, you know what sounds
training for football.
Yeah. Do you know what sounds more fun than hanging out with models, making music videos, popping bottles, whatever it ends up doing on these music videos? I think I want to get and work out at 4 a.m. and then get tackled every single day in the heat of Miami during training camp. And then I'm also going to produce a great season for you. I just don't think any of these things are going to happen. I think it's a cool story. I think it's a fun player to talk about, but I think he's more fun to reminisce about the times that he had in New York than what we're going to see in Miami moving forward.
I wish I remembered what the trade was. I traded for him the year before he retired, and it was kind of all disappointment that year and then the following year. He is obviously he's a converted wide receiver to play tight end, and he's just been a fun player overall. Miami is grasping at straws at this point. Mike McDaniel is fucking coaching for his job at this point because they just haven't been able to get it done. Tyreek Hill's disgruntled. Jalen Waddle can't stay on the field. Devon Achane is an explosive playmaker that I'm not going to get into that conversation for another time again. I don't know what Darren Waller does for a team like this at this point, right? He told the New York Giants he wanted to come back and play football, and the Giants were like, meh, no thank you. They have Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson, and they're a young team that could probably use a veteran presence in that tight end room, and they were just like, no thank you. Right.
The closest that Darren Waller is going to get to a Super Bowl this year is if the NFL asks him to perform at halftime. So I don't think he moves the needle.
Was that the rap reference you wanted? Was that the joke?
Yes, it was.
There you go. That was a good one.
I appreciate
solid
that.
One. I obviously spent some fab on him in one league. I spent like $40 in a really deep Dynasty league where we have like a plethora of benches. I saw him go for more than that. I saw him go for less than that. It just seems like people don't really know what to do. And in deep leagues, you might as well take a flyer because, your waiver wire is just decrepit. There's nobody worth taking a flyer on. So why not take a flyer on an explosive or used to be explosive tight end in Darren Waller? That's why I did it. I was just like, fuck it. Let's see what happens. Right. Because I know there's going to be nobody on here, come week 6. It's just one of those leagues where I know there's going to be nobody available. I saw a lot more spent on him, and I don't know if I was willing to do that. But $40 in fake money, might as well take a shot. Did you get any Waller shares?
No.
Did you even try, or were you just like, nah, I'm good?
Nah, I just don't. Look, I think I really believe in this. I know I'm being satirical here, making fun of the rap stuff, but I really do think that once you mentally retire from the NFL, you just never come back. You just get softer by nature because you don't have to be hardened anymore. And I think that there's a certain callus that you have to have in order to play in the NFL and do that grind every week. And I think that he's just the callus is gone. So he hopefully it's muscle memory. I wish the guy the best. He was an elite option. He was fun to watch when he was at his peak. He was. And during those Giants years, they had nothing to root for. He was like one of the dudes there where it was like, all right, well, he's gonna have a big game. Does anybody else have a big game? And I just don't think that guy's there anymore. And I just don't trust Miami right now. There's something weird with that offense for as much of a genius as Mike McDaniel has been sold to us that he is. And I do believe he's got some unique play calls. I don't see them being this 40-point a week offense. I think that they're very boom or bust. And I think a lot of it comes down to, can they trick the other team as opposed to can they out scheme the other team?
Yeah. By the way, if you want to get a Darren Waller younger version, just look to the Los Angeles Chargers in Oronde Gadsden. By the way, he was comped to Darren Waller by one of the coaches. The tight end coach comped him to Darren Waller. So that was one of my buys this offseason. Go get Oronde Gadsden. Spend a 3rd-round pick on him. Fuck it. Who knows? Anyway, speaking of retiring, let's retire this episode. Matt, tell us where we can find you. Tell us kind of the things you got working on. I know you kind of plugged that, but let the people know one more time in case they missed the beginning portion of this episode.
Yeah, footballguys.com. That's who so graciously allows me to write and just kind of live out this dream that I'm doing right now. I get to talk to people like you. I've met a lot of cool people because of Football Guys. So subscribe to Football Guys. I am too, after the way you opened this show. No, I write articles on there. Like I said to you earlier, I just started to kind of consistently get back into the content creation stuff. I'll be doing this likely through January now, weekly to bi-weekly. So I'm going to be around. I'm going to be annoying on Twitter. Please follow me at MattMontyFF. I just crossed the 1,500 follower threshold. Pretty big deal. That was a goal I set at the beginning of last season before this season was to get there, which was really cool. So I appreciate everybody that cares enough to follow me, like my stuff or whatever. So if you wouldn't mind, I got another goal. I'm not going to say it out loud because God forbid I miss it. I'm just going to try to continue to grow, to continue to be on different shows. And the ability to contribute to shows like yours is something that I don't take very lightly. So I just want to say thank you. You can support me by following me and just call me an idiot, or liking my stuff and calling me smart. Whatever you want, dude. Just click the links. Say what's up. I will respond, dude. I have no life. So just be friends, man. Who cares? It's football.
Yeah, I really appreciate you jumping on. It's been a great episode. I appreciate the back and forth you and I have had on several different topics.
It's fun, man.
In DMs. Great dude. Make sure you're following him. Make sure you help him follow his goals that he has, because that's the most important thing, is just supporting one another. And that brings me into our last point that we bring up at the end of every episode here, is if you're struggling with your mental health, make sure you're reaching out to somebody. Make sure you have someone to talk to, whether it be a friend, a guy you met on Twitter like myself. I'm willing to talk to anybody if you're struggling. You're a parent, your animals. Make sure you're speaking to somebody, because that's the most important part, is getting it off your chest. Just make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because somebody out there loves you and cares about you. So don't forget that. So for the Dynasty Dogs, brought to you by the FF Universe, I will not see you guys next week. I will be on vacation, so you will gladly miss this voice. I will see you guys next time. Have a good night.